the DNC are still insisting Biden is going to run as their nominee, and it's fucking insane that they're actually going to do it, but they are going to do it. But all the while this has been going on, Gavin Newsom has essentially been running a shadow campaign, is the best way to describe it. What Gavin Newsom has done is, because an incumbent president doesn't have to do debates, I don't think they've done that since Jimmy Carter, they've been able to insulate the fact that Joe Biden is fucked in the feed, to use the medical term. And he is fucked in the feed, and every time it's getting worse every day, and every time microphone's in front of him, he doesn't know where he is or what he's doing, and he's getting people's names wrong and places wrong, and he tells insane lies about himself, and it's just a nightmare. So what do? Well, you do need somebody that can speak articulately about Democrat talking points on occasion. And so Gavin Newsom has been the guy that's been going and doing it. And it's essentially an audition for when he does it for real. Now, be under no illusion, you call it a shadow campaign. Newsom is essentially running for president at the moment, whether you want to accept that or not. He will be there instantly. If Joe Biden falls down a fucking flight of stairs, the first phone call that's going to come into the fucking Biden household is going to be Gavin Newsom asking if he died. Gavin Newsom is hot to trot. He wants to do it. And, look, even though I think what he's done in California is a fucking night. No, he'll beat Harris. He'll be there straight away before Kamala. Even though I think he's done a terrible job in California, the one thing I'll say about Gavin Newsom is, at least he's what I conceptualize as a politician in my mind. He is the right kind of age, a little bit of life experience, not too young. He looks good in a suit. He's articulate. He talks good game. And of course, he's absolutely filled to the brim with bullshit. He is what I consider to be a politician. I wouldn't hate it if the Dems ran him. I could even be inclined, if I were legally allowed to vote, I could even be inclined to maybe vote for him, because I think some of the stuff the Republican Party has done and is also promising to do doesn't really vibe with my values. That being said, if it is as I expect it to be, DeSantis Biden, I can't vote for Biden. He's senile. I couldn't vote for Biden. You shouldn't vote for Biden. He's not only senile, there's a corrupt cabal behind him, running him. It's like a pope. It's like the Vatican over in the White House now. The country's gone to dog shit the past 4 years. His foreign policy's been an absolute disaster. And he's incapable of making his own decisions. You want to vote for that? Fucking hell. I don't know. You might be a brainwashed pleb. But anyway, so Gavin Newsom's been out there, and he turned up at the debate in the Reagan Library, and he literally was being interviewed on, I think, CNN and MSNBC, and he was doing fact checking, which of course means lying when it's a politician doing it, about things that were being said in the debate. And then he challenged Ron DeSantis to a debate, and there was all this back and forth about whether or not Ron DeSantis was gonna debate him, because Gavin Newsom, after DeSantis said, "Yeah, I'll debate you," Gavin Newsom did the I think you've got more things to worry about than debating me. Why would you even take the bait, loser? Anyway, then it turned out that, the Dems were actually, it'd be great if you could debate him, because you can just go and evangelize all of Biden's talking points. Biden can't do it himself, because Biden can't fucking speak because his box is gone. And Gavin Newsom went, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll go and proselytize for the DNC. And so we ended up with this insane debate, which is someone who isn't running for president really, going up against a nominee who, as at the time of recording this, has actually, according to some polls, slipped to third. When he announced, he was even ahead of Trump. The DeSantis campaign, I still think he's going to be the nominee, but it's going to be one of those political campaigns that is studied. How are we polling so badly? It doesn't make sense. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. And so Gavin Newsom walked into the lion's den of Fox News in a debate, a pay-per-view debate hosted by Sean Hannity, one of the worst men in media, to debate DeSantis. And the debate was wild. I've since been able to watch the whole thing, but I can't play you the whole thing because there isn't a link to the whole thing, because it's behind that paywall. But Fox News did a pretty good job at chopping it all up, and I'll pull some of the clips and whatnot, and we're going to go through them. Now, here's a couple of things I will say. Sean Hannity is awful. He's a human foghorn. I have no idea why he would be chosen as a debate moderator. Somewhat embarrassingly, he's been one of the better moderators that I've seen in these debates. Actually, sort of knew his place and let them go at it and didn't get involved. Now, of course, he was absolutely outrageously biased towards DeSantis, but I don't really even hate that, because when you had people turning off like mics from certain candidates and not asking them questions, and there's always fuckery around the debates. It's a big popularity contest, and the way it's even structured is designed to be that you essentially find out who's got the chops, and then you whittle down the rest, and then eventually we all go for the guy we were going to go for anyway. So that's it. You're auditioning for future jobs a lot of the time with these things. But anyway, Hannity didn't do a terrible job. All the stats he brings up, as you'll see, are super biased. As a moderator, he's kind of like fact-checking Newsom a lot of the time. And I don't think Newsom particularly did great, but he wasn't there to do great. What he was there to do was to score points off DeSantis. This is one of those political decisions that can go either way. Was it a good idea for DeSantis to debate Gavin Newsom? Probably what we can say now with him slipping to third, no. It could have been. It was a gamble. It really didn't pan out as well as it should have done. Because owning Gavin Newsom is irrelevant to the presidential race, because remember, Gavin Newsom isn't running. And so, unfortunately, there's loads of super memeable moments in it. And DeSantis does get to put forward a relatively articulate vision of what he would do as president. But ultimately, I don't think he walked away from this unscathed. So, all of that said, let's get into the clips. Now, remember, we're back on Fox, so you are gonna have to tolerate. He still can't smile even in a photo. You are gonna have to tolerate Fox. They literally set this up like a boxing match, and as we'll get to in the aftermath, there was a ton of quotable sort of memes and laughter around just how silly it was. But yes, DeSantis still hasn't learned how to smile yet.
And welcome to Hannity. And tonight we are broadcasting live just north of Atlanta, Georgia, in Alpharetta, Georgia, where in just a moment we're going to hear from the Republican governor of Florida, the Democratic governor of the great state of California, for what is the first ever red state, blue state debate right here on the Fox News channel. Now, we will do our best to give equal time to each governor. We will limit answers to 60 seconds per question. We'll be a little flexible as needed. Let the debate breathe as needed, along with a 30-second time for rebuttal.
The reason Hannity sounds like he's drunk is he's trying his best not to be an asshole. It's very hard for him. You have to understand, what he does for Fox News is he literally just brings people on to voice their opinions, then shouts in their face while they try to voice their opinions. That is his approach to interviewing. When I heard he was going to be the moderator, I was like, this is a car crash waiting to happen. This is fucking mental. But anyway, strangely normal. Yes, slurs his words as opposed to shouting slurs, which I'm sure is more often his wheelhouse. But he slurs his words and he trips up and gets a few things wrong. But actually, by and large, just a better debate moderator than some of the ones we've had, particularly the one in the Reagan Library, I would say.
Let me start by introducing both Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
He's got to get it. DeSantis has got... That's his best attempt at a smile, I think, but it's still frightening. He looks like a Madame Tussauds waxwork of himself, which every time he tries to smile, it's got uncanny valley effect. It's so fucking wild. But anyway, good job on the smile. They've clearly worked on that campaign.
California Governor Gavin Newsom. Governors, thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Sean.
I know both of you personally. I've known you both for a long time. I know you're very busy. I also know this. I know that both of you love your individual states. Yeah. I know you both have a deep and abiding love for our country, as I do. but where we are in the...
Now, by the way, I'll just point out, for all of the fucking mockery we get into around Fox News and its fair and balanced, lies and all of that stuff, you would never get such a gracious opening for a Republican on a Democrat network. You just wouldn't. Imagine DeSantis on MSNBC having Joy Reid go, I know you have a deep love for our country. You know what I mean? It just wouldn't. But this also sort of plays into the idea of, it is a monoparty, it is one big club, and, they all know each other, they're all round each other's houses for drinks and doing insider trading together and all this other stuff. So
the country, we've never kind of been this divided in a long time. There are clear and...
Divided thanks to the likes of Sean Hannity,
in
of course.
your approach to governance. And before we begin, one quick note to all of you that are watching at home. Okay, I'm now the longest-running primetime cable host in the history of cable news. I'm now
terrifying,
blessed in my 28th year at Fox. It's kind of widely known that I am a conservative. However, tonight I will be moderating this debate. I will not be part of the debate. Our questions tonight will be coming from well-sourced, fact-centered perspectives, and you will see and hear most of tonight's questions will deal with the most fundamental issues, the ones that impact the lives of the people that make this country great, the people in Florida, the people in California, and in many ways, every state in the country. We'll discuss taxes, the economy, immigration, crime, guns, homelessness, education, parental rights, abortion, gas prices. In other words, the things that impact you every single day. In the end, you will get to decide which government...
I love that they had a graphic for that. What's the purpose of that graphic? Why do you need that graphic? It's just a list of things. You don't need it to be abortion, bullet point, taxes, just crazy.
Governing philosophy you believe is better. The governors will explain their governing philosophy. And again, fact-based questions. So let's get started. Everybody ready? All right. As we speak, there is a phenomenon. It is playing out across the entire country. Americans, they are leaving blue states in droves in favor of red states. You can see numbers on the screen right now from the years 2021 and 2022. These particular numbers are stark in the state that you lead. In the case of you, Governor Newsom, according to the U.S. Census, this is where the numbers come from.
It's kind of embarrassing as well, because Fox is right about this. That is actually, and here's how I know this, because there was, I can't remember which journalist it was now, but when DeSantis was last being trolled by Newsom, he made the point saying people are leaving from California to come to Florida. Why is that if Gavin Newsom's done such a great job? And the journalists went and published an article. Which one was it? But I can't remember the name of the journalist. It's one of the ones. You'll know the name. I'll have brought them up before, one of the bad journalists. Anyway, they said the exact opposite. They took the numbers, somehow couldn't read them accurately, and said, this is fact check, false. And they wrote a headline that they then had to correct. And so it basically, the journalists were getting dunked on again over this particular topic. But yes, Newsom himself has publicly said this is wrong. It's not. People are leaving California and going to Florida. I mean, or rather, as a totality of Americans, people are leaving California. And as a totality of Americans, people find moving to Florida desirable. A number of reasons, obviously. I mean, probably shouldn't talk too much about it because I try not to inject my own, opinion and invective into these things. But I've been to California. I remember first time I went to LA, I was so excited to go there, and kind of I've been to various Californian cities, and it's just fucking sad. It's just sad. I had this idea of it in my brain, and the reality is just so far removed from that. The homelessness crisis is crazy. The drug crisis is crazy. Prices are crazy. And it's, I don't know, it's just super, a place that I was super psyched as a Brit to have finally got to go to and to get to see all the amazing historic cities of the great state. What I saw really disappointed me, and I just thought it was really sad. It's never nice to see so many people living in degradation and to be falling through. There has to be safety nets for vulnerable people, and there just isn't. And I know America isn't great at that as a whole, but it certainly doesn't seem to be as big an issue in some other states and cities I've been to. So, I think California does have a problem. I don't think Newsom's record is particularly great. I don't think they've been great with energy either. I think, obviously they've had there's been a number of periods of rolling blackouts and stuff. Put it this way, particularly during the pandemic, it was kind of interesting because the way that people went after Ron DeSantis in Florida, because, people forget this. They called him Ron Desantis all throughout the fucking pandemic. But actually, he did shut down the state initially. He did decide to do that, and then he sort of reopened it and made a big deal about how he was like reopening things and stuff like that. And now he tries to make it sound like actually we never shut down at all, which isn't true. But they were doing. You remember that fucking creepy lawyer dude who was on the beaches dressed as the Grim Reaper and just all of that stuff, and they had a rolling death tally in the same way. You will notice that we're just being told, yeah, COVID is here and we have to live with it and you should definitely get a booster. We're not doing the rolling death tally anymore. Oh, no, we only did that for Trump, by the way, because it was Trump's fault. But the minute Biden got in office with a pledge to shut down, I won't shut down the country, I'll shut down the virus. Did you do that? No, he didn't. Well, anyone want to hold him accountable? No, we won't. But we will take the death tallies off. We don't need them anymore. They're politically inconvenient because it turns out our guy did not shut down the virus. In fact, the deaths under Biden, as you'd expect, have surpassed the deaths under Trump. But whatever, won't get into that. What I will get into is they did the same thing. They used the death count in Florida to beat Ron DeSantis over the head. Meanwhile, their boy Cuomo in New York had done all of the things that were supposedly, in line with their policy, but he made deliberately dangerous decisions. It was Cuomo, for example, that made the decision to put the COVID patient overflow, wait for it, in the homes of the elderly. We knew 2 weeks into the pandemic that the elderly were the most vulnerable because they were the ones that were dropping first. And Cuomo just basically, you have to wonder if it's malicious, put the most vulnerable people. The one thing we knew about COVID unequivocally was the elderly were more vulnerable. That's literally what we absolutely unequivocally knew. And he made a decision to put infected people in direct proximity to the elderly. And he wrote a book, I think, about his leadership. He got an Emmy during this time. Everybody was pointing to him and saying, this is the guy. Well, the death tolls in New York were pretty fucking similar to the death tolls in Florida. No rolling death tally for our guy, though. And he had to be toppled by a sexual harassment allegation. And so it wasn't the fact that he killed Grandma. He literally killed Grandma. Not like they used to say if you went out to buy a pint of milk or whatever. So it's super interesting that, they went so hard in the paint to paint Florida as this, like, awful, dangerous place that nobody in the right mind would go to because of Ron DeSantis. And yet, every week, who was there? AOC was there. Remember when she got photographed with her boyfriend holidaying in Florida? Why? Because you could holiday down there. Because they reopened. But if it's a dangerous Republican hellhole where you're going to catch COVID and die, why did all these Democrats go and holiday down there and get caught on camera? While telling everybody in their respective states to fucking stay at home and not go out. So these numbers are important to the broader political narrative because of how they tried to paint Florida during that time. So there you go. That's the background. That should bring you up to speed.
In 2021, 2022, California's lost 750,000 residents to other states. Governor DeSantis, during that same 2-year period, you gained 454,000 residents from other states. So, Governor DeSantis, we had a coin toss. I was not part of it. I missed it. But apparently, Governor Newsom, you won the coin toss. And you chose to let Governor DeSantis have the first question. You will get the last word tonight. So I begin with you. For Governor Newsom, I will ask, what your response is on this as well. It's a simple question. How do you explain this phenomenon? Governor, what's going on?
When I was in the Navy...
Yeah, good point, actually, just before he drops his stolen valor again. It's actually way better without an audience, isn't it? Without the stupid cheering in the background.
I got orders to go to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado in Southern California, and I was a lifelong Floridian, but I went there and I was like, man, this is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and I think California has more natural advantages than any state in the country. You almost have to try to mess California up. And yeah, that's what Gavin Newsom has done since he's been governor. He's the first governor to ever lose population. They actually, at one point, ran out of U-Hauls in the state of California because so many people were leaving. Of course, he's imposed restrictions on his own people while exempting himself from those restrictions and going to the French Laundry while his people were suffering. He led the country in school closures, locking kids out of school while he had his own kids in private school in person. Now, he's very good at spinning these tales. He's good at being slick and slippery. He'll tell a blizzard of lies to be able to try to mask the failures. But the reality is they have failed because of his leftist ideology. And the choice for America is this. What Biden and Harris and Newsom want to do is take the California model and do that nationally. In Florida, we showed that conservative principles work. This country must choose freedom over failure.
Governor Newsom, your reaction.
Well, it's good to be with you, Sean. It's nice also to see you in a tie as well tonight. Good to be with you, Ron. And
I dressed up for the occasion, Governor.
Dressed up? No, I'm impressed and I'm grateful. Look, it's an important occasion. This is an important conversation, and I think it's important to the folks watching. They're probably wondering, what are we actually doing here? And I want to answer that very directly. I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm here to tell the truth about the Biden-Harris record and also compare and contrast Ron DeSantis' record and the Republican Party's record as a point of contrast that's as different as daylight and darkness. You want to bring us back to a pre-1960s world, America in reverse. You want to roll back hard-earned national rights on voting rights, on civil rights, on LGBTQ rights, on women's rights, not just access to abortion, but also access to contraception. You want to...
And there it is. And so, I keep saying the fucking worst part of the post-Trump landscape for the Republican Party is having to deal with what the Supreme Court did and some of these other fucking proposals, because it's like I said, nobody gets it right. Right. Here's what the average person thinks about abortion. The average person thinks, right, that bunch of cells in a womb that's developing isn't the same as a fully formed little baby, because it isn't, right? But they know it's going to get there at some point. It will be that if everything goes well, right? So they want, somewhere along that line, they want a scientifically sound principle for a hard cutoff as to when you can get an abortion. And then they want people to have the access to that procedure available without judgment, condemnation, or having, because, it's still insane. Like, even in Britain, right? You think we're fucking progressive? Woman still needs to convince a doctor. Why? Like, shut the fuck up and put the appointment in. You know what I mean? And so, in America, what's ended up happening is, all the Republicans have to do is keep saying...
Californian than Californians going to Florida.
No, I put up on the
by the way, that's going to be fun to fact check, so we'll just start right there. California has no peers. California dominates, size of 21 state populations combined. It's the fifth largest economy in the world. We dominate, number one manufacturing state. We dominate in two-way trade and research and development, access to innovation, more scientists, more researchers, more engineers, more Nobel laureates in the state of California than any other state in the nation, the finest system of higher education. It's the birthplace of life science and biotech and nanotechnology. We dominate in green tech. We dominate in high tech. We dominate in artificial intelligence. So with respect, I think it's an interesting campaign strategy for Ron DeSantis to be bashing a state of 40 million Americans when California simply has no peers.
Well, that's a pretty slick way of not answering your question. He went on a binge of putting out a lot of left-wing platitudes. Here's what I would say. I talked to a lot of the people that have moved from California to Florida, and we never used to get people from California to Florida or really anywhere in these, because why would you leave California? It's got the best weather, great natural forces. Excuse me, sir. But one of the things that I did, I was talking to a gentleman, a couple.
Guys, I'm going to let the debate breathe. But it's his turn. Let's take turns.
So I was talking to a fella who had made the move from California to Florida, and he was telling me that Florida is much better governed, safer, better budget, lower taxes, all this stuff. And he was really happy with the quality of life. And then he paused and he said, by the way, I'm Gavin Newsom's father-in-law. So we do count Gavin's in-laws as some of the people that have fled California and come to the state of Florida. And why are we getting people to come?
That conversation never happened, but it was fact-checked during the debate, and indeed, Gavin Newsom's in-laws are in Florida. He's kind of walked into that one. So
we have a 50-year low in the crime rate. You don't see in the last 10 years, we've had a 45% decline in homelessness. California's had a 45% increase in homelessness. We back the blue. I was walking the streets of San Francisco a couple months ago, and I had some of the cops in San Francisco do a beeline to come over to me, and I didn't.
Desantis, by the way, is just like Bruce Banner, the like the Incredible Hulk. He's just always like out there talking to people, hitchhiking, but then he always has to move on to the next town. Just it's like insane how many like anecdotes he has. Like fucking, I was talking to this guy.
I didn't know what they were going to say, and they're like, we want to thank you for standing for law enforcement because we don't get that support in the state of California. So people understand quality of life matters. They understand that Florida's doing it right, and I can tell you the numbers speak for themselves. We have way more people moving to this state than leaving. Gavin can't say the opposite. More people are leaving California than are moving into California.
Let me bring up
coming to California the other way around the last 2 years. But let's talk about crime.
Governor, hold on. Governor, wait a minute. Hold on a second.
He said a lot of things that were factually untrue, including that 50-year crime low, which his own law enforcement team said you should not be using.
You have yet to address the issue, but I asked you twice. You don't want to answer it. But the issue of why the migration out of red states, out of blue states.
We just established more Floridians coming to California in the last 2 years than the
overall,
other way.
You had a net loss of 7.
It's a fact.
Just asserted it.
It's a fact.
No, it's not a fact.
It is a fact.
Moving on.
So that was them trading barbs on why people are leaving California, why people are going to Florida. Newsom, again, you see, Newsom doesn't have to answer any of these questions because he's not running. This is the lopsided nature of this debate. So we go into the next one. This is some immigration talk. Obviously, you're always going to have a bit of that, aren't you, in these things? So.
And since taking office, Biden said he's gotten control of the border. Vice President Kamala Harris, Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas, Biden's press secretary Karine Jean-Pierre have all said the border is either secure or the border is closed.
Now, fact check. First of all, I don't even know what the border is closed means. You can't close it. You remember, because the reason you can't close it is you spent 4-5 years really about how walls aren't who we are. you pretended border walls were racist, despite the fact there's like about 70 nations globally that actually have border walls. So a border isn't a thing. It's like just a line. It's like with just occasionally in America, because it's so huge. Obviously, occasionally you do get like little, stops and guard towers and fences. But the idea that we can just go and the border is closed, no, it's nonsense. And yet this is something the Dems have repeated over and over and over again. So today, it was actually in the news that in what they call encounters in right-wing media, because they play the same games the lefties do with the language. They call them encounters because it makes it sound dangerous. The immigrants. We're encountering them. But they reported that it was yesterday, was the single highest daily number of encounters, in that there were over 12,000 migrants attempting to enter the US in a single day, many of whom, of course, are entering illegally. I don't really have sort of a strong opinion about this. I think, obviously, you need to enter countries legally, and it's untenable for large numbers of people to enter countries illegally, and it disrupts economy, it disrupts community. I get all that, but equally, if we're going to keep blowing shit up on the other side of the fucking world and propping up tyrants and selling chemical weapons or whatever the fuck we're up to these days, and when I say we, I sort of mean like the superpowers and Western governments, we're going to displace people. And where do displaced people go? Equally, I think if I'd grown up in like some sort of like, you know, economically disenfranchised country, I'd probably try and get out and go somewhere else, you know, to feed my family. So I don't really see immigrants as like, well, yeah, I technically I did do that, didn't I? I don't really see immigrants like as this kind of like insane, like, you know, oh, it's got to be, we must have zero immigration. I think like a good country has like a responsible country should enshrine a right to seek asylum within it, and certainly I think how we define asylum seeking should be, I think it should be easier to access and have broader definitions. That would make way more sense than what we're doing right now. But forget all that. What I will simply say is, once again, old Uncle Joe is lying to America. It's super easy to prove that he's lying constantly on this particular topic. The border is not closed. It's not secure. There are more and more people trying to come into America than ever before, illegally. And a lot of these people in these, like, performative hearings that they do are just straight up lying. Like, they're just perjuring themselves, if perjury were possible within those hearings. It's, like, actually insane. So, yeah, I mean, this topic's going to come up time and time again. It really does matter. Like, I do have some sympathy with the border towns that are disproportionately affected by this, and I did think it was hilarious when the illegal immigrants got bussed up to Martha's Vineyard, where certain Democrat politicians live. And, you know, you will notice they didn't, while they may have made a big deal about, oh, look, we're super happy to have you here, and look, we're giving people some cereal, they certainly got rid of them within a day, didn't they? And I think that's, you know, and we've now got, funnily enough, Democratic politicians in New York, particularly the mayor of New York, is on record as saying they can't come here. We must stop immigration in New York. Chicago, same thing. People there are saying we the immigrants can't, and it's like, guys, you know, you literally beat Trump over the head for 4 or 5 years about trying to slow down the pace of immigration, illegal immigration, and you said you pointed to the Statue of Liberty and you said, you know, look what it says on there. There's a poem. Give us your needy, give us your hungry, and you said, Trump, you know, this isn't who we are as people. And then obviously, when they start coming to the cities that already have these huge problems, the Democrat cities with the huge issues, they say you can't do it. They completely do a 180 on the issue. It's like, well, why should the border towns be hit with it? Like, the American immigration system is broken. The way they process illegal immigrants is broken. And as I said in my Enemy of the People video, they don't care about people in cages, because people are always being put in cages. For as long as I've been alive, they've been putting people in cages at the border. It wasn't a Trump phenomenon, and it's got worse under Biden. There are more children in cages now than ever before. More children in the system, like children that have crossed illegally where they can't even locate their parents or any family members back in the country they've come from. I dread to think what else has gone on down there. So they need a task force to sort this out, and it starts by having a fucking sensible system of immigration. You know, one of the things that you could do right to unburden the system would be to have some sort of workable amnesty system, because there are people who've lived in America illegally for 25 years. They're in and they've got Social Security and all this other stuff. That person's not going anywhere. Let's get them out the system. Let's actually have like an amnesty for them. So it's just, whole thing's a fucking mess out there, guys.
Border Patrol says, well, guess what? They have been a record 6.5 million encounters with illegal immigrants and so-called asylum seekers at the border since President Biden took office. The administration says, well, they don't know how many people actually are in the country illegally. Gentlemen, the American people, I ask you, I believe it's your turn, Governor Newsom, have the American people on the issue of borders, you're defending the Biden administration, they're saying the border's secure, They're saying the border's closed. Those are the numbers from our own Border Patrol. Are the American people being lied to?
I don't think they're being lied to. The Biden administration put out a comprehensive plan day one when he got sworn into office 3 years ago, and the Republican Party didn't touch it. They haven't moved on it. They play politics with us. And I'll be honest with you, I think there's probably one person I wouldn't listen to on this topic more than the guy that I'm standing next to, Ron DeSantis. He lacks any credibility on the issue of immigration. When he was in Congress, he supported amnesty. When he's in Congress, you supported John Boehner's bill. It's a fact.
False.
When you were in Congress, you supported
I killed John
Obama's.
Boehner's
You
bill.
supported Obama's.
I actually fact-checked this after it happened, and I went to look at... you can go and find Ron DeSantis' voting record. All of these people have like a public accounting of how they voted on a number of websites. And the only bill that I found that I could find that proposed an amnesty for illegal immigrants was one from 2018, I think, and Ron DeSantis voted against it. That was all I was able to find. So I don't know which specific thing Newsom's referring to here, but I think he's telling a fib.
Efforts
That is
to
false.
advance comprehensive reform.
False.
The last guy you want to talk to on the issue of immigration. Your immigration policy can best be described as a governor from the state of Florida going into another state, the state of Texas, lying to migrants, promising them jobs and housing, sending them to an island, Martha's Vineyard, and then sending them to a parking lot in Sacramento, California. I met with those migrants that you lied to under false pretense. That kind of gamesmanship, using human beings as pawns, I think is disqualifying. So again, a guy who stands here, who's been out on the Republican debate stage saying, well, he's going to be tough, he's going to shoot people with backpacks, and that he has a strategy to potentially even invade our second largest trading partner, Mexico, that has a record of supporting amnesty and supporting reforms under the Obama administration, is the last guy to be standing on stage talking about the issue of immigration reform tonight.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's deja vu all over again with that flurry of lies. This is a guy that says the Biden administration is not lying to the public about the border. They go to the White House briefing room every day. They say the border's secure. They are lying to you. We know that that's not true. Gavin Newsom is lying to you when he says somehow I supported these things, which I didn't do. He's also lying to you about what it's going to take to solve this problem. California is a sanctuary state. They thumb their nose at federal immigration law, and this has real consequences. There was an illegal alien, Herbert Nixon Flores, who was in L.A., in custody. He was a repeat criminal. ICE wanted to take him into custody because then they would be able to deport him. L.A. refuses to work with ICE, and so they wouldn't turn him over. They end up releasing him on the street. He ends up murdering the mother of a 3-year-old little girl. Those policies are deadly. They do not work. And I'll tell you this. The Martha's Vineyard transport, Martha's Vineyard said it was a sanctuary jurisdiction. Kind of reminds me about Gavin Newsom when he restricted Californians, then he went to the French Laundry. These liberal elites, they like to impose burdens on you. They don't want to have to face the consequences of their actions. So we've got a lot of elites who want open borders, who lecture everybody else about it. Then the minute they have to deal with any of the consequences, oh man, all hell breaks loose.
How about
and they
the
get upset.
consequences of
How about we
We're
have
moving
one
on.
set of
We're
rules
moving
for
to the
every
next
American?
question.
We'd be much better off
On the
as a
same
country if
topic.
that were the case.
On the same topic.
I mean, that's just another crazy thing about America as well. Like, I don't understand the concept of, like, sanctuary cities. I never really got that. It's like we refuse to work with an aspect of law enforcement that has deportation powers. You know, that kind of feels like that just shouldn't be a thing. Like, like, I'm not saying deportation can't be, like, a cruel process, and you have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. But it kind of does seem like, I don't know, fucking does seem to be somewhat ridiculous that I can just, as an elected official, I can just opt out of the legal process of the country. Should be that, if you don't like a policy, you should be trying to come up with prescriptive remedies for a better policy. But, that whole aspect of law enforcement was brought in and created because there were issues with this. Now, I also understand the flip side, because I've talked about it many times. A lot of these cities, whether they want to admit it or not, they do exploit undocumented migrant workers. You know, there's been some horrible stories coming out, like people who worked in the worked in the construction industry, and people have like died on the job, and they just fucking put them in the foundations of the building. There's no papers. We don't want to have to report it. We don't want to have an investigation, so we're just gonna fucking, we're just gonna literally give them a burial and can't contact their families. No one will ever know what happened to them. It's like really gross. So I don't know. I just feel like the whole fucking system's broken, but I don't really agree with the idea of like sanctuary cities. It kind of seems that like just refusing to work with the deportation, kind of mechanism. Just, I don't know. That should be disqualifying, I think.
This is important. This is a very important question. Right. While some migrants I know want to come to America for a better life for themselves and their family, find the American dream, I totally sympathize with them. Many good people fleeing very bad situations abroad. But others are abusing the asylum process, and in the process, in search of where they're coming from, we're now learning that many are coming from some of our top geopolitical foes, countries with little to no vetting, or people that are coming in. They're not being vetted. Look at these numbers. Between October 2021, October 2023, border agents encountered 6,386 nationals from Afghanistan, 3,153.
Can't think why that number might be high. Can't think of something that might have happened as it pertains to Afghanistan that might have led to an increase in Afghani displacement. I mean, the Biden administration literally did just give it back to the fucking Taliban. So I don't know. I kind of feel at that point you should probably just say, "Our bad. We really fucked it up in this country. Tell you what, let's." If you want to come here, we'll just have to make it work. That kind of feels like a reasonable agreement.
From Egypt, 659 from Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, 538 from Syria, 12,605 from Russia, and a whopping 26,113 from China. Now, the next question goes to you, Governor Newsom. What are the odds that Biden's open borders have allowed terrorists and terror cells unvetted into this country? Is that a clear and present danger to every American?
The odds are 100%. Of course our enemies are going to take advantage of this. He opened the border. He's violating his oath of office to take care that the laws are faithfully executed. He's knowingly having 8 million come in. And yes, there's criminal aliens, there are terrorists, there's a lot of fentanyl. That we've had tens of thousands of fentanyl deaths. I've met a lot of angel parents who have lost kids to fentanyl overdose, and the problem is, you'll have a college kid that may take some pill not knowing that there's fentanyl in it, and then right there, that can be fatal. They're poisoning our people. And Joe Biden is sitting on his hands. He refuses to take care of the border. He refuses to hold the drug cartels accountable. This is the vision of Biden, Harris, Newsom. Open borders. Americans suffer, and Americans continue to die because of fentanyl overdose. There will be, unfortunately, a terrorist attack at some point that we'll be able to trace back to our southern border.
God forbid. By the way, do you see that risk, Governor Newsom?
Hold on.
Governor, do you see the risk?
Joe Biden put out not only a comprehensive plan, he consistently puts up plans.
Hold on,
but Sean,
is there a risk?
I'm going to answer your question. I support border security. I think the asylum system is broken. I believe that we need.
I understand that.
I'm the only guy here that's a border state governor. You're trolling folks and trying to find migrants to play political games to try to get some news and attention so you can out-Trump Trump. And by the way, how's that going for you, Ron? You're down 41 points in your own home state. On the issue of immigration, Joe Biden put a $14 billion immigration package up in front of Congress, 2,300 border agents, as well as custom officials, 1,000 new law enforcement officers to deal with the fentanyl issue. And by the way, that's a major issue in your state, 41% higher overdose rates than the state of California. And here's what I haven't heard, not a peep.
Florida is the great overdose state.
You want to play politics with issues. You don't want to solve this issue. Why don't you lead your party and support that $14 billion package?
Hold on.
Right. So That was the immigration segment. I think this is the crime segment now.
Gun murder rate in your state.
We'll let the audience. We'll let the audience look at the numbers, the FBI numbers, and decide. According to the gun control advocacy group, every town for gun safety.
Yep.
Okay, California has the most, as you support, I know, Governor, restrictive gun laws in the United States. Yes. Florida has the 19th most restrictive. Yet, if you look at the year 2019, when each of you took office, California has had 21 mass shootings. Florida has had 9. Now, that is according to a USA Today, AP, Northeastern University database data. Keep in mind, a mass killing is defined as the intentional killing of 4 or more victims, excluding the deaths of unborn children and the offenders by any means within a 24 period of time. I believe, Governor DeSantis, you get this first.
What California wants to do is they want to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to defend themselves. Then they go easy on the criminals who are perpetrating the crime. They don't stand up for the men and women of law enforcement. That's why a lot of people have left the state, because they don't get the support from the communities that they need. And, Gavin told another lie. He said we made it easier for felons to do. Felons are not allowed to possess firearms. That's federal law. That's been long-standing.
No background checks.
That is an absolute lie that he's saying like that. That has nothing to do with buying or purchasing a weapon. So that's just a lie, another lie that's coming up.
I mean, like, DeSantis has tried to bat that away. But again, because it is true, they don't have background checks in Florida. There's a lot of states, actually, where you can just go to, like, a fucking gun show, like a traveling gun show, or you can walk in just some fucking skeezy little gun range and you can just buy a gun. No one's checking shit. No one. Ain't no computer. You know what I mean? Like, you can just buy a gun. Like, super easy. Yeah, I'll take that one. So, that's what Newsom's talking about there. And DeSantis knows it.
But here's the thing. People are leaving California in droves because he has failed to stand up for public safety. They are on an ideological joyride to let people out of prison early, to go easy on them. Heck, your buddy, Gavin's buddy in Los Angeles, Gascon, he doesn't even prosecute. When I was in Southern California for the Reagan debate, a lot of the women tell me they have to take off all their jewelry just to be able to go shopping, because otherwise they're going to get mugged. That is the reality that people are facing in California. Right. Gavin can try to put lipstick on that pig, but the fact of the matter is he has failed the people of California.
Governor Newsom.
I love this guy talking about backing the blue when you dangled pardons for January 6 insurrectionists, 85 of them that were charged with attacking law enforcement. You talk a big game about backing the blue. With all due respect to the crime rate, again, he's not answering the fact that he has a higher murder rate than the state of California, a 66% higher gun death rate than the state of California. And I can easily answer this point. Gun safety saves lives. I don't think it, I know it. And the data bears that out in the state of California. California proudly does lead in terms of common sense gun safety. Common sense gun safety saves lives. You had the chance to do something meaningful. You had a chance to do something on behalf of those Parkland families. You did the exact opposite. You moved in the exact opposite direction. With all due respect, look at your own backyard, Ron.
So
you're not mining your backyard on this issue.
I will do that because we had 2 radical left Soros district attorneys, like your buddy Gascon in LA, one in Tampa, one in Orlando. They were endangering the public, and I removed them from their posts. Gavin Newsom has not lifted a finger to rein in Gascon in L.A. That city has collapsed. That county's collapsed because he is not enforcing the law. So that's just and here's the thing.
This
is what's happening. That California model,
we're a little
that's
over
been
time.
done in Philadelphia, Baltimore, all
15 seconds. We got to go break.
Come on. I mean, you're running for president of the United States. You're talking down the great state of California. You're talking down one of the great American cities, Los Angeles. That's insulting. And you're doing it because you're trying to obfuscate the facts that you have a higher murder rate in the state of Florida and the state of California.
We got to take a break.
Some of the lowest crime rates we've had in 50 years.
We'll have more with Governor DeSantis.
So, yeah, I mean, I thought DeSantis got comprehensively creamed on that one, but I mean, Florida's just a fucking crazy place to live. Your record in Florida is always going to be bad. People do fucking OD there. People do like to shoot guns there. It's one of those. Like, look, California's got a ton of problems, but the fucking, you know, the phenomenon of Florida man does not lie. Like, I mean, like, the numbers are never going to come out favorable. And it's like, this is what I mean about the nature of this debate and sort of why it wasn't probably, in retrospect, a good idea to even participate in it. Because Newsom is doing a bang-up job of attacking DeSantis' record. DeSantis is attacking Newsom's record. Newsom ain't running, theoretically. So what do you even stand to win from this? Like, it's like all that can happen is you just get fucking creamed. And, you know, look, as we'll get to, there are some memeable moments that went viral. But next, we will do energy.
One of the things I wanted to accomplish here is the policies that you both implement have a great impact on the citizens of your individual states. For years, a gallon of gasoline, Governor Newsom, in California has been notably higher in your state than in the state of Florida.
That's right.
Here are the numbers, by the way, recent numbers. The average cost for a gallon of gas nationwide, just over $3.24. In Florida, $3.17. In California, it is a whopping $4.85. So, Governor Newsom, I ask you, you've also sued big oil companies, alleging executives have deceived the public about the health of our planet, knowing that it's a polluter. If your lawsuit is successful, that would likely mean higher gas prices, even higher gas prices for everybody. Here's my question, though. Could you name right now one source of energy that you can bring online in the next 3 to 6 months that would be as inexpensive for the people in this country as fossil fuels?
Well, let me touch.
Can you think of that energy?
Let me touch on I'm going to get to your question, and then let me touch the latter part of your question. Let me give the first part.
I mean, gotta love, like, yeah, 3 to 6 months, like, yeah, all right, I'll get right on it, Sean. Like, what the fuck do you want me to do, dude? Like, 3 to 6 years? That's still a really good question. Like, Jesus Christ, can't keep thinking in such short-sighted terms.
Right. Since the 1980s, Republican administrations, Democratic administrations have experienced, under their stewardship, experienced higher gas prices in the state of California. We've been ripped off by big oil. We continue to be ripped off by big oil. Big oil now has met a new foe, and that's the state of California, the most aggressive anti-gouging law in America, more transparency being required than any time in America. And yes, we're suing the industry responsible for this climate crisis. By the way, the same climate crisis that Ron DeSantis celebrated as human-caused, who campaigned for a fracking ban, who campaigned to oppose offshore oil drilling, and then 2 days after he got elected, signed an executive order. By the way, Nikki Haley had you dead to right on this, Ron. Signed an executive order doubling down, saying you're adamantly opposed to fracking, adamantly opposed to offshore oil drilling. You were celebrated by the Sierra Club for that action until you weren't. Once again, it shows the hypocrisy of Ron DeSantis. Now you're running away from climate change as things have gotten worse. Hurricanes, wildfires, droughts, and floods. $179 billion of weather-related disasters. And he has no response except talking points from big oil.
Governor Newsom.
That was a mouthful. Again, just more lies. But here's the thing: California is the only one that oil companies are gouging. Why aren't they doing that to Georgia or Florida or these other states that have lower gas prices? Because of their policies. That's why people are paying more there. What Gavin Newsom wants to do, what he's doing in California, what Biden wants to do nationally, is government-dictated green energy policies. They want to kneecap fossil fuels and reliable energy. We've already seen what's happened in California. They have rolling blackouts. He actually implemented a mandate to buy electric vehicles. So pretty soon in California, you're not going to be able to buy a normal car, only electric vehicles. And they celebrated that as like a great thing. A couple days later, there was a notice from the state government telling all EV owners, do not plug in your EV because they don't have enough grid capacity. So he is walking his people into a big-time disaster. What Biden wants to do is he wants to take the California model. He wants to impose that nationally. He wants to take away your ability to purchase the car that you want. He wants to kneecap reliable energy. And he wants to bring these rolling blackouts all across the United States of America. It doesn't work. It's going to cause huge problems. We have more energy here. We can be the dominant energy producer
apparently
in
not
the
in
world,
Florida.
and
You
that's what we're going to
fracking and
do.
you oppose offshore oil
Florida is
drilling.
not a big energy
Wanted to
state. We have the
oppose offshore
Marcellus
oil
Shale. We have the
drilling.
West Texas. We have all of that.
Just
So let's
rank
do that.
hypocrisy.
No
You were
forcing
called out by
electric
Nikki Haley.
vehicles.
We got to take
Save
a break.
the American automobile.
When we come back, we'll continue the great state, red state, blue state debate. More with Governor Ron DeSantis, more with Governor Gavin Newsom as we continue. Thank you for being with us from Alpharetta, Georgia.
So there you go. That was the energy sparring. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it makes sense, doesn't it, that we are gonna have to move on from fucking fossil fuels at some point. What I don't like is this sort of prescriptive ripping the Band-Aid off policies that are going to lead to, generations having a reduced quality of life. Now, of course, the counter argument to that is, what quality of life will they have if climate change accelerates in the way that some climate models are saying they're going to accelerate? But I mean, ultimately, we've got an issue in the short term that needs to be resolved. And electric cars, I don't want to upset everybody, but electric cars, they run off electricity. And what is an electric grid powered by? The same, the same. Yeah, I know, it's like blowing everyone's mind. I know, right? So the issue that we still all come back to the issue that we need to have better infrastructure. We need to get better tech around renewables. And as I said, the worst thing that probably happened to human development in the last however fucking many years was Chernobyl, because of the fear factor it created around nuclear, which, we people campaigned to close nuclear plants. There was a whole branch of technology that completely was underdeveloped for humanity, that who knows where we would have been now if that incident hadn't happened and created that general panic. And it's sad, because while I get nuclear waste is a problem and we need to think creatively about disposal, storage, all of that stuff, nuclear remains the most efficient form of energy. It's the cleanest form of energy we probably got access to, outside of obviously things like solar and stuff. And even then, you've got the problem of how much space solar has to occupy to get these diminishing returns. And ultimately, it could have answered all of our problems. I've always been a big proponent for nuclear energy, and I used to be a card-carrying lefty, as you know, and I've said some very ignorant things about nuclear power back in the day. So I was like, got to get rid of nuclear and go green. My mate's dad literally was a nuclear physicist. He worked at a nuclear plant in the UK, one of the only ones we have. And he used to say, "You're a fucking moron." And he was right. He was unbelievably right. He used to explain to me in scientific terms exactly why nuclear power was clean and efficient and safe. And I'd go, yeah, but what about Chernobyl? What if that happened? And he's going, yeah, but it just doesn't. In fact, in many ways, now, in the aftermath of that, the worst case scenario that was only made possible by corner cutting from the USSR, from the Kremlin, essentially, and then a subsequent attempt to cover it up that nearly caused a global disaster, the likes of which we can't even imagine. Because of that, the safety protocols that wouldn't have been violated in any of the other countries anywhere got ramped up. They got turned up to 11. So it used to sit and used to explain it to me. I mean, Fukushima is even an argument for how safe it is. The worst thing imaginable happened in Fukushima. It got hit by a fucking massive earthquake tsunami. And yet, we somehow... it was still managed to remain containable. No one died. Chernobyl, it weren't. So that's how safe it is. You can hit a fucking power plant with a fucking tsunami, and you know what? No one dies. Now, I wouldn't have sushi down there. I'm being real with you. Probably wouldn't have sushi. It would look like that fucking thing, off The Simpsons. But I'll just say, in countries that aren't going to cut corners on safety protocols, nuclear's as safe as probably anything. So, what? And we desperately need it. I mean, we saw what happened. Was it Germany? I was reading about this the other day. There was a country. I think it was Germany. It's always Germany when it comes to energy. But I think anyway, what they did is to meet some of their climate pledges, they had to close down nuclear plants in favor of renewables, and then they tanked their grid, and they had to build coal plants. They had to build coal plants to offset the fact that their grid couldn't work anymore because of it was Germany. Of course it's Germany. It's always Germany. So, listen, in a microcosm, that sort of happened a little bit in California as well. Newsom shut down a pretty famous Californian nuclear plant, I think, and then I think they had to reopen it because they just couldn't meet the energy needs. So, look, put it this way. I hate the way Republicans, El Diablo, that's it. I hate the way Republicans talk about that we've got to go back to fracking, we've got to burn coal, we've got to keep using fossil fuels. It's not that. Like, why isn't a Republican candidate making a pledge to expand nuclear and to create jobs in that sector? Why does it have to be fossil fuels? And then over on the other side, you've got the Democrats, and it's like, we're just going to force you all to use electric cars, and that'll probably fix everything. It's like, no, that ain't actually, because this is about infrastructure and energy generation. It starts there. It's they're thinking backwards on the issue because they're thinking about emissions, which need to be reviewed. But if the grid itself isn't sustainable for the things people fucking need, then all of the non-carbon emitting vehicles in the world aren't going to solve the fucking problem. So, and listen, I think that's a good question. I don't even think we know where we're at in terms of lithium depletion. I don't even know. Like, we know where there is loads of lithium. Spoiler, why do you think Nigeria's, made all those deals with China and is making so much fucking money? They were already one of the biggest oil producing nations in the world, and now they've got huge fucking lithium reserves. Like, but I don't know what the, I don't know globally what the lithium situation is, because we don't monitor it like we monitor oil. It's not tied to geopolitics in the same way, but it absolutely will be very soon. And so, the countries that control huge swathes of lithium, and funnily enough, I was reading an article. I think it was for the Peter Gammon stream. I was reading an article the other day, and it was did Brexit do anything good? It was something stupid like that. What did any good come from Brexit? And it was written, I think it was written by a Brexiteer, right? It was a real short fucking list. But on that list, funnily enough, I think was because we no longer had to implement mining regulations from Europe, we could now expand Britain's mining in lithium and other essential components that apparently we have significant reserves of, apparently. I also think Norway is a country that has like a ton of lithium, so they might end up being weird little power players. So there's lithium everywhere. A ton of countries seem to fucking have it. So, but I mean, obviously as well, battery efficiency is a thing that we're working on all the time, and it still all comes back to the problem. We need an electricity grid capable of outputting enough energy so people can use these emissionless vehicles. That's the key problem. And again, in my opinion, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm probably talking out my arse, I don't know, it's not an area of expertise for me, and I'm more than happy to admit it, it would be nuclear for me. That's what I would be like if I was running for office now as a world leader. The thing I would be looking to do is how can we expand nuclear plants and create an abundance of energy. Let's actually have an abundance. Let's make sure we can produce. And I wouldn't shut down renewables either. But I think nuclear. It does feel like it's never talked about in these energy debates. It's like Republicans want to go back to fucking burning coal, and Democrats are just like, if you drive we're gonna take away your gas stoves, make you drive a fucking electric car, and that's going to fix the problem. And it's like, it definitely ain't. Those two things alone are not going to solve the energy crisis that human civilization is facing. Anyway, that was the energy bit. This is, I don't know, this video is just entitled Shadow Campaign. So I imagine it's just some personal bickering between the two candidates.
And the issue is right now Joe Biden is president.
Yep.
So I would like both of you, it's the lightning round. It would be great if you guys
Oh, it's the lightning round. It's 2 minutes.
I'm not a potted plant here.
Good.
And I want to ask you, we all know that federal policy does have a huge impact on states. We know that. I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions, and I just want one-word answers, okay, from 3 of you, because
do our best.
We're coming up on a break. And the issue is right now, Joe Biden.
Asking a politician to answer any question with a single
I would like
word.
both of you to give a grade to Joe Biden overall as president. Governor Newsom,
A.
I'll give A.
An A, absolutely.
Governor
I think it's been a
DeSantis.
master.
Failed.
A failure. Okay.
No, that's your
Now,
campaign
number 2,
president.
are his policies helping or hurting your individual states? Is it helping the state of Florida?
The inflation is hurting our state big time.
Grade.
Fail. He failed.
Yeah.
He's failed
What
on the
would you-
economy.
The guy just took
Is it helping
$28
the
million
state of
from the
California?
Science and Tech Act. Thank you, Joe Biden. It's absolutely accelerating our dominance in manufacturing, accelerating our revitalization
Okay,
of
that
our
was a
state.
simple
the answer
answer.
Is unequivocally,
Lastly.
absolutely yes.
Okay, I will ask you, Governor DeSantis. I have played over and over again, and Governor Newsom, you have seen over and over again. Joe Biden is experienced what I believe to be significant cognitive decline. And in other words, it's the toughest job in the world. Is Joe Biden experiencing this cognitive decline? Is it a danger to the country? Do you find when he speaks, what is your reaction to it?
Yes, he's in decline. Yes, it's a danger to the country. He has no business running for president. And, you know, Gavin Newsom agrees with that. He won't say that. But that's why he's running his shadow campaign.
Yeah, see,
He should
that's a
not
good
be
one. That's a
running.
dub.
He is not up to the job, and it is dangerous for this country.
Well, I will take Joe Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age. In fact, all
So
of the
do you
folks
think- you think
on the
he's up to the
campaign
job?
trail.
You think he's 100%?
I've been spending
100%?
plenty of time with Joe
100%?
Biden in
Okay.
private
Let
and
him
public.
answer.
You don't know. And by the way, results matter. Inflation now is down to 3.2%. Wages are up to 4.4%. The economy is booming, 5.2% GDP growth in the last quarter. Those are facts you don't hear on Fox News. 14 million jobs, 10 times
Let me
more than
move
last.
on.
But by the way, on that front, it was literally just reported that the average American family is sort of spending like, I don't know, like close to $11,000 more per year for the same shit to enjoy the same standard of life. And funnily enough, the Washington Post journalists went on strike, and they cited the reason for their strike. So remember, the Washington Post, who literally wrote, "There is no such thing as inflation. The economy's doing good." Those same journalists are on strike in the last 24 hours, and their union cited out of control inflation. They don't even believe their own bullshit on that one. They don't even believe their own bullshit. There's absolutely no fucking way, by the way, there's no way on God's green earth anyone that isn't campaigning for office with a straight face can say the American economy in 2023 is in a better place than it was pre-pandemic 2019. There's just no way. It cannot be, you know, that cannot be argued. You know, I don't think Joe Biden has done a great job on the economy. I think there were some unique problems, I think, going through the pandemic and supply chains and lots of other stuff. But you can't, I mean, literally, I studied economics, only to A level, right? But I do know this, you can't keep printing money. used to talk about this quite a bit, actually. You can't just keep printing money. Like, you can't do that. You can't make money to spend money, and that unfortunate. And you know, look, I think this administration is definitely overspent. I mean, the debt threshold is set to be, you know, ridiculous. Now, listen, here's something. Trump added to the national deficit of America trillions. Like, I mean, you know, he did also print and spend money, but there were other things going on. And obviously, for most of his tenure, didn't have to deal with the pandemic, got to deal with a robust stock exchange, did expand jobs, did expand, you know, American businesses. His America First policy did apply to a lot of businesses, automobile industry. He put in a bunch of tariffs and things like this. So, you know, there were lots of upsides, and that was why, you know, it felt like your dollar went further back then. You know, a ton of other reasons that, you know, I'm not going to list because it's not really relevant anymore. But at the end of the day, there's been this knock-on effect of policy decisions that and the pandemic and supply chain issues. Also, I mean, foreign policy has had a significant impact on the economy because, you know, issues with China, issues with Russia, you know, it's just a plus. I mean, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has had an impact on the American economy, and wheat and energy prices. You know, the whole thing's been a nightmare. I'm not saying Joe Biden is entirely to blame. I mean, I'll also add as well, it's pretty embarrassing that any American president would have to beg members of OPEC, beg Saudi Arabia to drill more oil so they have a surplus they can sell to America. All the while you're dipping into the oil reserves, which that could be another fucking disaster waiting to happen. So, I mean, look, the Biden administration has fucked a lot of stuff up while simultaneously facing a lot of unique challenges. But, I mean, anyone who gives this Biden administration an A for anything is batshit insane, out of their minds. And it's definitely time for someone else to fucking, you know, have a go on the levers of power. I think we can safely say this administration it's been one of the more disastrous American administrations in my lifetime, frankly. And, you know, again, I lived through fucking 8 years of Bush Jr. And then I think this is the final bit and then we can get to the memes. Because what's funny is Fox didn't upload the memes. The reason they've glossed over them.
Welcome back to Hannity, the great red state, blue state debate. We continue with Governor Gavin Newsom, Governor Ron DeSantis. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, these are the numbers for the homeless population in each of your states. It is a big problem around the country. In the state of California, it is 172,000. In Florida, it is 26,000. Now, the per capita...
I hate the way as well that for all these numbers that they've brought up, they're not. They are. There you go. Finally, a per capita one. Probably should focus on that, given the respective populations of the two states. You know, population does matter, but you know they've deliberately not done that. But you know, it's Fox.
Capita numbers are pretty much the same. For California, it is 44 per 10,000 people, while Florida has 12 per 10,000 people. So, Governor DeSantis, I ask you, why the disparity? What are the policies you are implementing that is different from that of California?
California is adopting leftist policies. Gavin Newsom was governor or mayor of San Francisco. He put out a 10-year plan like 20 years ago. He was going to end homelessness. Then a few years later, he had another plan. And now he says he's going to do, and it's only gotten worse. In the last 10 years in California, the homeless has gone up 45%. It's gone down in Florida 45%. But it's caused a huge problem with quality of life in California. The people that flee always bring up this. They've really empowered lawlessness and drug use. And, you know, Gavin Newsom at one point tried to say that California was the freedom state. And I just kind of laughed, like, you're locking people down, you're doing all this. But then I thought about it, you know, California does have freedoms that some people don't, that other states don't. You have the freedom to defecate in public in California. You have the freedom to pitch a tent on Sunset Boulevard. You have the freedom to create a homeless encampment under a freeway and even light it on fire. You have the freedom to have an open-air drug market and use drugs. You have a freedom, if you're an illegal alien, to get all these taxpayer benefits. So those are freedoms. They're not the freedoms our founding fathers envisioned, but they have contributed to the destruction of the quality of life in California, and the results speak for themselves. People are leaving the state.
That literally does sound like Croeseru in Wales. I don't know. Some people just grew up around that.
Because they have failed in addressing the homeless population.
Well, I love the rant on freedom. I mean, here's a guy who's criminalizing teachers, criminalizing doctors, criminalizing librarians, and criminalizing women that seek their reproductive care. You're making it harder.
There it is again.
Vote. You're banning books. I mean, spare me this notion of freedom. Ask the folks at Disney about freedom and free enterprise. Ask the folks at the Special Olympics that you threatened to fine with $27 million.
Because they were discriminating against the athletes.
Who goes
you wanted
after
those
Special
athletes
Olympians?
to be
When
out
it
of there.
comes to
Kids
the
with
issue,
Down syndrome,
Ron, of homelessness.
that is wrong. That's
when it
being a
comes to this-
liberal bully.
You know,
That's being a bully.
Really?
They had Down syndrome, and you wanted to discriminate against them.
$27
They
million
were discriminating
fine to
against
Special
because they were
Olympians.
discriminating
I find that
against the
disgraceful.
athletes.
On the
They wanted
issue
to
of
marginalize
homelessness-
the athletes, and you wanted the athletes marginalized. That was wrong what you did. These are kids with Down syndrome
way,
that just wanted to compete.
I grew up
and
working
you wanted
aid to
them,
adoption
you wanted
of
them out
special
of the
kids. I've
Special
been
Olympics.
working with
You're
Special
a liberal
Olympians all
bully.
my life.
You
How
wanted them
dare
to be.
you?
You wanted
How
them to
dare
be
you, Ron?
ostracized.
You threatened to
you should
fine
talk to
Special
Isabella
Olympians
from
with
Florida.
$27
She got to participate
million
because
in
we
fines.
stood up for
this
her
is the way
rights.
you treat. Oh, yeah, by the way, no, hold on.
It's your
no,
turn.
let me say.
Go.
I can handle that.
Right, just in case you don't know why Desantis keeps saying Down syndrome over and over again, right? Which is decidedly uncomfortable. Okay, here's what happened. There were some Down syndrome athletes that wanted to compete at the Special Olympics, but the doctors wouldn't clear them and advised them not to do it. So they said, we're being discriminated against on the basis of our medical conditions, and so the state prosecuted to overturn the doctor's preventative licensing or whatever the fuck it is for the Olympics. Basically, they didn't clear them essentially to compete, so the Down syndrome people could compete. That's what happened. That's what DeSantis is referring to.
I can handle it. I'm used to that. But you know what?
You wanted her
your
not to
attacks
compete.
on the trans community,
You
your
wanted
attack
her
on the
not
gay
to
and lesbian
compete.
community.
That's wrong.
You attack
She should have been able
vulnerable
to
communities.
compete. And
you
we
attack
stood up for
women.
them, and we made sure they could
Again,
compete.
Ron, relax. I can handle it. I'm used to bullying. You're nothing but a bully.
You're a bully.
I understand that. Intimidating and humiliating people, that's your calling
Why
card.
did you want the
And by
Special
the way,
Olympians not
how
to be
well
able
is
to
it going
compete?
for you?
Why
How
did you
well
want
is
them
this
not to be able to compete?
How well is this
Why do
campaign
you not
going?
want them to be
He's
able
not
to
going to let me
compete?
talk, so
I
I'll
don't
talk to the
understand
American
why you would
people.
want to discriminate
Again, I'll
against an
remind
athlete
you,
with Down
Gentlemen, let's
syndrome.
go.
blueprint.
He wanted them
the
to be
blueprint
excluded
for
from the
Florida
Special Olympics.
has put Ron
gentlemen, if I
DeSantis
can.
41 points down
Let's go
to
back.
Donald Trump as you try to get tough.
We said
and
that.
out-Trump Trump.
Let's go back to
on
the
the
homelessness.
issue of homelessness.
The
It's been an issue for decades in the making in the state of California, ever since we started shuttering down our mental health institutions back in the day, in Ronald Reagan's day. The difference is I'm the first governor in California history to take this head on. We are investing unprecedented resources, more accountability. We've gotten 68,000 people off the streets, close to 6,000 encampments we've gotten off the streets. We've also invested in unprecedented resources in reforming our behavioral health system. Ron has literally the worst mental health system in America, forgive me, outside of Mississippi and Texas. And so with all due respect to being lectured on some of these topics, Ron DeSantis is not the one I'm going to be listening
30-second response. You're, well, I'm looking at total time. Governor DeSantis,
look,
about 2 minutes.
He needs it.
This is a map of San Francisco.
Right, buckle up, okay? Because it's prop time, all right? Now, this is the single most ridiculous thing I have ever seen in any presidential debate ever. Tucked into his jacket. The entire debate he's had this. He had a map of California, but you will notice that the map is brown. And why is the map brown? It's not just that they chose that colour to, by chance. You've probably seen this map. You've probably seen this map on the internet. You've probably seen it on Twitter. You've probably seen it on Reddit. It is a map that charts the reports of instances of people finding human feces in public. It's affectionately known as the poop map. Now, in California, you wander around in the big cities enough, you are going to see. You're probably going to see one or two things. You're going to see poop, human poop, poo, shit. Right? You're going to see it. And if you're really unlucky, and I've seen it, you will see someone do a shit. You will see that. Now, remember, as many people know, I saw that in Wrexham as well. So, I mean, you know, it's not an exclusively Californian issue, right? But, I mean, I literally saw someone taking a shit while talking to someone down the road. Shitting in a gutter. But anyway, this is so brazenly stupid, it could only happen in American politics. And what I hate about this is, I know that this got circulated like, oh, what an own. I don't know. Do I want the President of the United States to be a guy who unironically pulled out the poop map on Fox News? I don't know. That's probably as ridiculous as anything Trump ever did. Where you fall on that issue, it says a lot about how you feel about things politically. You know, if you believe there's any saving the system, you probably don't want Mr. Poop Map in the White House. If you think it's all silly and just let it rip, then you're probably going to vote for Trump over Desantis anyway and let him do his death wish revenge campaign. But, you know, someone who pulled out a poop map, a close second. But anyway, here it is. This is what he does with the poop map. By the way, just Newsom laughing at the poop map is like so fucking funny to me. Like, it's just that screenshot right there is just it's just insane. It's just so mental.
There's a lot of plots on that. You may be asking, what is that plotting? Well, this is an app where they plot the human feces that are found on the streets of San Francisco. And you see how almost the whole thing is covered, because that is what has happened in one of the previous greatest cities this country's ever had. Human feces is now a fact of life, except when a communist dictator comes to town. Then they cleaned up the streets. They lined the streets with Chinese flags. They didn't put American flags there. They cleaned everything up. So they're willing to do it for a communist dictator, but they're not willing to do it for their own people.
I want to get in with the limited time we have left. I want to get, there are two very important issues we have not hit.
So that was the poop map that they pulled out. Now, I mean, listen, the thing with the poop map, things you never thought you would ever say when talking about politics. The thing with the poop map that you have to remember, there it is, there's the poop map. And again, I hope I'm not going to shock anyone with this. The poop isn't actually that big. It's just the way that they've made it so big for each little arrow that it just looks like California is literally covered in shit, like just smeared. And the fact that you have these unbelievably dark, concentrated areas here just also makes it so fucking hilarious. Like, you can't even see the cities for brown. It's just mental. It's mental that exists, but that was meant to be a bit of fun when that person put that together. I don't think they ever thought it was going to get used as a fucking prop in a presidential debate. Like, Jesus Christ. Then
the role of the schools to educate kids, not indoctrinate kids. It's not to impose an agenda. It's to do the basics.
So anyway, he basically pulls out one of those. But again, this is one of these silly things that Dems keep on insisting defending, which I don't understand why they do it, because it's a super easy win. No parent is going to feel comfortable like about their kids having access to sexualized materials in school, which isn't to say that kids shouldn't be able to get good sex education, or kids shouldn't be able to like find out things if they need to and that sort of thing. But, you know, probably like you don't need it. You don't need some of the stuff in there, you know, like you don't need hardcore depictions of like sex in kids' books, right? You just don't. But anyway, he brought this up because obviously he got hit with the fucking book banning thing, is what they always say. The books aren't banned, they're just removed from libraries in schools, essentially. You can still buy them, you can still access them. You could, as a parent, choose to show them to your kid at home if you wanted to. You know, there's no state banning. That's like, but they say, oh, you're banning books. It's not true. But anyway, this is the fucking book. As you can see, he holds up a page from a book called Genderqueer.
And what we've said in Florida is it's inappropriate to tell a kindergartner that their gender is a choice. It's inappropriate to tell a second grader that they may have been born in the wrong body. Now, California has that. They want to have that injected into the elementary school. My wife and I have a 7, 5, and a 3-year-old. We don't think that that's appropriate. And I know most parents do not think it's appropriate. It's also important to respect parental rights to know what curriculum is being used in the classroom, and everything should be age appropriate. I actually have something that I brought that some parents have objected to. So this is a book that's in some of the schools in California. In Florida, this is not consistent with our standards, called Gender Queer. Some of it's blacked out. You would not probably be able to put this on air. This is pornography. It's cartoons. It's aimed at children, and it's wrong. So this should not be in schools. When people like on the left say that somehow you're banning books by removing this from a young kid's classroom, no, this is not age appropriate. And so we're going to stand for the rights of parents. I think we need to do that nationwide. I don't think you can have a situation where some states just trample on the rights of parents. Parents have a fundamental right to direct the education and upbringing of their kids.
I mean, by the way, you've been on a banning bench. 1,406.
So, yeah, he just, in the middle of a debate, said, listen, I've just got this pornographic cartoon. I just got a pornographic cartoon in my fucking inside pocket that I brought with me. And then he's holding it up while talking about it. And then obviously fucking Fox are like, Jesus Christ, what the fuck is Ron doing now? And they cut to a wide shot while he's holding it up, while he's trying to make this like pointed fucking message about, do you want your kids to see this? Yeah, and if you go and actually look up what the page he was holding up was, it's ridiculous. But what's the only thing more ridiculous than sort of the idea of that being allowed, just giving that to a 6-year-old or something, is probably a guy running for president saying, you'll never guess what's in my pocket today. It's so fun. Like, honestly, I've never seen anything like this. Like, this debate had moments in it, like, just beyond farce, like, beyond you just couldn't satirize this. It's so crazy. So, I don't know, because I came away from it like, I went after the debate. That's pretty much all I'm going to show you with the debate now. That's all we need to do. I came away from the debate with a feeling that I kind of feel that Desantis was looking for like a big viral moment, and it didn't really, other than the poop map, it didn't happen. And I don't think the poop map is going to get you elected as president. I don't think the poop map is going to be like one of those moments once we get to Iowa, we go, fucking hell, we're going to vote for the poop map guy. I don't think it's going to happen. I think actually the viral moment that you needed had to be where you slap down some policy. And DeSantis walked right into the trap, right into the rake, if you will, of, I know this was framed as the great blue state, red state debate. That's how Fox promoted this the entire time. But what DeSantis did that Newsom didn't, DeSantis did talk about California and kept trying to link it back to this idea that far left principles are what's going to do. He barely mentioned Biden at all. And that's who you're running against. You're not running against Newsom. What's happening in California is small potatoes. They're never voting for you anyway. So he fell into the trap of trying to he actually tackled the assignment as it was billed, but it was never about that. Newsom, on the other hand, basically proselytized for the Biden administration, and when he slaps down Ron's record in Florida, that does matter. Because the record in Florida has been held up as being, you want this for America. So Newsom, I thought, like at the end, I thought actually, looking back at it, it was a pretty bad decision to participate in this debate for DeSantis. And I think Newsom very aptly ran rings around him. And Newsom has fucked up California, and his policies have been awful and disastrous. And yeah, he's a liar. And yeah, he's a hypocrite. But you know what? He'd get my vote. I know he's a liar, but I'd probably vote for him. He's articulate, clearly intelligent, pulled figures out for fucking days. His policies will probably ruin the country, but I'd take that, If it was like Newsom Trump literally keeps saying, Trump went on the news the other day and said, day one, they asked him saying, like, you've joked about abusing your power as president to get back at your political foes. And Trump went, like they're doing to me. And the interviewer went, yeah. And he said, are you serious? Would you do that? And Trump goes, besides day one? And it's like, bro, like, Ixnay on the engine's bay. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to vote for a guy who is literally saying, by the way, listen, I wasn't a fascist last time. I didn't abuse my power last time, but they've fucked me so much now. I'm going to reach my final form. So, you can't really vote for that in good conscience. You vote for that over a man with no brain, like literally no brain, obviously. But, it's like Newsom, I thought, acquitted himself very well. And I think if you put him head to head with Desantis, I don't know if they've even done that in polling. Let me just have a look. So, yeah, the polling data, they did a poll in November. So this is pre this debate. From that, Desantis had a 1-point lead over Newsom, but 14% of that said they weren't sure who they would vote for if presented that choice. So, DeSantis in November, by the way, is certainly a different candidate to DeSantis in December. Been a lot of fucking, a lot has happened since then, because that's what they mean. 24 hours is a long time in politics. That 1-point lead, particularly after that debate, could have evaporated. Increasingly, DeSantis is looking at having to beg Trump for a Veep spot. That's the reality we're heading to. Now, listen, I'm not going to back out of my predictions. I still think that the sensible thing for the Republican Party to do is to ignore all the sound and the fury, not go with Trump, no matter how well he polls, no matter how, 45 points ahead, I don't give a shit. It's political suicide. No one will vote for a president who is fighting off indictments over concentrating on running the country. It's not going to happen. He's the only candidate that can mobilize the Democrat voting base to come out and vote for Biden again. He's a phenomenally bad choice. You go with DeSantis, it doesn't look great on paper. He's behind Trump. But if you throw your lot in and say he will be our candidate, you do beat Biden. But if the Dems come to their senses and say, actually, let's just fucking we can't run Kamala either. We can't run Joe. Shit, man. Yeah, actually, Joe's going to step down. He realizes now is the time. He was very impressed with Gavin Newsom. So Gavin Newsom's going to be our presidential nominee. Newsom probably beats DeSantis in a head-to-head. Be close. So it seems pretty clear to me, like, the way this is going to pan out if we're all on rails. But, yeah, DeSantis has run a pretty spectacularly poor campaign. And he definitely needs to not be behind Nikki Haley by the end of it, which as of today, he is. Let me just bring this up. Now, this includes the other debate that we're not going to watch tonight because it is getting late. It's after 1 o'clock for me. And I'm sure you can, you have to do politics in small doses. So I'll probably get into that tomorrow. This is what happened after that poll, after that debate in Alabama. And you can see DeSantis and Haley were neck and neck for second place in the GOP primary, and that dial has now officially moved today. Obviously, she's had a number of big endorsements from all the, military-industrial complex and those types of people. And by the way, Nikki Haley absolutely can't win. If she's the second choice to Trump, the GOP has real problems. She absolutely can't win. But again, it's kind of telling that she's the one Republican that has, she's a war hawk, she has all these other dislikable things in her history, and yet, she just speaks very simple, she's the more empathetic choice when it comes to the issue of abortion, and abortion's on the ballot, guys, all thanks to your boy Trump. So, DeSantis, memes aside, probably should have swerved that debate. I don't think it was a particularly good decision for him to go. El Gapo has sent in some memes, because of course he has. He always does live memes while he's doing the debate. And the meme he sent in here is it's DeSantis holding up the rich cord instead of the poop map. You can see he's got someone's cacking, and it's the tech suffering. I never go in there. I never look at what's happening in there. I always ignore that one. And I did get, it's okay. It's not as good as the tech suffering one, probably, but we did get this. Ron DeSantis is anecdote man. He looks great in those heels. And you can see, again, I don't know how you always manage to find his head while he's doing, ridiculous things. But there you have him. He's anecdote, man. He's just out there flying around meeting people. So yeah, it's kind of weird, man. Ron's put himself in a bit of a hurt locker. If he somehow doesn't get the nomination, they're really going to look back and study it.